Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take complex source material, the articles, research, academic history, and distill it all into pure, actionable insight.
Yeah.
And today we are diving into a field that's just absolutely fascinating because its history is really defined by how often it got things spectacularly wrong. Paleontology.
It's a crucial distinction, isn't it? I mean, paleontology is maybe the ultimate example of scientific humility.
How so?
Well, you're looking at fragments, a few bones, a mineralized trace, and you're trying to build a living animal that has no modern equivalent at all.
So misinterpretation isn't just possible.
It's inevitable. It's baked into the process.
That's really the mission for you, the learner, today. We aren't here to just, point and laugh at history. We're here to look at specific times where an educated guess just missed the mark.
Big time.
Right. From mistaken tails to aquatic sauropods and even butt brains. We're going to show how these huge, sometimes really embarrassing errors are actually the engine that pushes our understanding forward.
And you have to remember, these early scientists were working without our huge comparative databases. They were trying to fit these utterly unique things into boxes that already existed.
Like a rhino or a crocodile.
Exactly. A rhino, a croc, a hippo. And we'll see how that led to errors in, I'd say, three main areas. Putting the parts together, understanding the scale, and then interpreting how it all worked.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we begin?
Let's start with the most dramatic example of, let's say, scientific haste.
We have to start with the Bone Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, that legendary rivalry that fueled so much early discovery and error.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the intense competition between Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh.
And they were just constantly trying to one-up each other to get the next big publication out.
And that competition, it led directly to what's probably the most famous anatomical mix-up in fossil history, right?
It did. Cope's great blunder with the Elasmosaurus.
So set the scene for us. Cope's team is in Kansas in 1869. And you have to remember, this area was a giant inland sea back then.
The Western Interior Seaway, full of enormous, terrifying predators.
And his team finds this incredible fossil, a marine reptile with this unbelievably long section. It has 72 vertebrae.
Which is more than 7 meters long.
7 meters. Just for perspective, you, the listener, standing up, you're probably what, 1.5 to 1.8 meters.
So this one section is like 4 times your height. And a giraffe, a modern giraffe, has only 7 neck vertebrae.
7?
This animal had 10 times that.
So Cope sees this and is what, horrified?
Pretty much. He was terrified of making some inexcusable mistake, declaring this the longest neck ever seen. He must have thought someone would call him out and say it was impossible.
So instead of checking his work?
In a decision driven by, I think, anxiety and haste, he decided this monstrously long section had to be the tail.
Yo.
He published his description, and he put the skull at the other end, the much shorter end of the body.
He put the head on the tail.
He literally put the head on the tail.
Okay, wait, I have to ask. How does an expert miss that? I mean, are the bones really that similar? Or was it just the rivalry, the speed?
It was almost certainly the speed. If he had taken the time, he would have seen the critical differences.
Like what?
Neck vertebrae, cervical vertebrae, they have very distinctive structures for muscles. And tail vertebrae, they have something called chevrons.
Chevrons.
Yeah, these V-shaped bones on the underside. They protect blood vessels. They stabilize the tail. He just didn't check for them on the long end.
You rushed it.
He rushed it, saw the scale, panicked, and made an assumption based on what he thought should be normal. And of course, his rival, Marsh, saw the paper and immediately called him out.
Oh, of course he did.
And confirmed that, yes, the Elasmosaurus was truly that necky. Cope then spent a ton of his own money trying to buy back and bury all the copies of that journal.
That story really just highlights the human element here. It's about reputation, not just fossils. But you mentioned he still went on to describe, what, over 1,000 animals?
He did. He coped, you could say. And what's amazing is that Elasmosaurus held the record for neck vertebrae for decades, until we found its cousin, Albertonex, which had 76.
Wow.
So the lesson is, when proportions defy anything living, you're almost guaranteed to get it wrong at first.
Okay, so Cope's error was about anatomy, about rushing. But the next set of mistakes happened when scientists just couldn't grasp the sheer scale of these things.
Yes. The aquatic assumption.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, when paleontologists started digging up sauropods, the huge long-necked dinosaurs like Brontosaurus, they were just, they broke science in the 19th century.
They were just too big. 4 or 5 times bigger than an elephant.
So how could they possibly hold themselves up on land?
The thinking was they couldn't. So they must have lived in the water, like gigantic hippos.
Right. They figured the water was necessary to support their weight, and they'd use those huge necks like snorkels, just stick their heads out to breathe.
Which, makes a certain kind of sense on the surface, but it completely falls apart when you add physics.
Basic fluid dynamics. It's a critical takeaway. Water pressure increases really fast. If a Brontosaurus was, say, 10 meters deep in a lake.
Not that deep for a huge animal.
Not at all. But for air to rush into its lungs, its chest would have to expand enough to overcome double the atmospheric pressure.
Which is just physically impossible. The weight of the water would crush its lungs. It couldn't breathe.
Exactly. This is also why you see those old movie scenes with divers using a long garden hose to breathe from the surface.
Certified baloney.
Total baloney. The pressure difference just doesn't work. And the evidence on land was always there. The legs of a sauropod are like Doric columns.
Built for weight.
Built for weight. And we have footprints, trace fossils. We know they walked on land, in herds, along floodplains.
Right. And this whole aquatic thing wasn't just for the giants, was it? It even happened with flying reptiles.
It did, the pterodactyl.
And this was described way, way back, 1784, before Darwin, before we even had a name for the age of dinosaurs.
Right. And the scientist, Cosimo Alessandro Collini, he was looking at a total mystery. It had a long skull with teeth, like a crocodile.
Okay.
But then it had these long arms with membranes, which looked, well, they looked like flippers to him.
So he didn't see a flying animal.
He had no concept for it. He correctly rejected the idea it was a bat or a bird, but he settled on the only thing left.
A sea creature.
An unknown sea creature. It took 50 years of more fossils to finally establish that, no, these were flying reptiles. It just shows how we force new things into old boxes.
So from bad assumptions about habitat, we get to my favorite part. The confusing, just downright bizarre features that led to some really wild conclusions.
And for that, we have to talk about Stegosaurus.
To us, it's instantly recognizable, but back then it was just an impossible jumble of weird parts.
And that led directly to the two-brain theory. Scientists saw the brain cavity was tiny compared to its body.
Right, the old brain the size of a walnut myth.
Which is an exaggeration, for the record. It was closer to a dog's brain. And brain size isn't a great measure of intelligence anyway.
But they couldn't accept that a small brain could run that huge body.
So they looked for a second one, a backup processor. And they found this natural thickening in the spinal cord channel, right around the hips.
And concluded.
The butt brain, a second brain to run the back half of the animal.
The butt brain. I love it. But what was it really?
It's a structure we see in a lot of modern birds and reptiles. It's called a glycogen body.
So not a brain at all?
Not even neural tissue. It's a storage unit for glycogen, which is like high-octane fuel. It can be converted to glucose really fast.
So it's more like an emergency power pack for the tail muscles, for reflexes.
Precisely. It's a specialized piece of anatomy they just didn't have a comparison for, so they invented a neurological solution. A bizarre one.
And it wasn't just the brain. They got the plates and spikes wrong, too, at first.
Oh, completely. Early on, they thought the back plates lay flat, like shingles on a roof. Or maybe like the armor on a pangolin.
But now we know they stood upright.
Upright, probably alternating down the spine, likely for display. And the tail spikes, the thagomizer.
They weren't just a decorative bouquet.
No, the thagomizer was a built-in nail bat. A serious defensive weapon against predators like Allosaurus.
The same kind of functional mistake happened with Iguanodon, didn't it? Which was only the second dinosaur ever described.
Yeah, back in 1825, the scientist, Gideon Mantell, found this weird conical spike with the fossil and was totally baffled.
He was using a modern iguana as his model, right? Hence the name.
Exactly. And iguanas don't have thumb spikes, so he figured it must be a horn.
Lay of rhino.
Just like a rhino, he put the spike right on its nose. For decades, museum exhibits showed this kind of dragon rhino creature.
And it took how long to fix that?
Nearly 50 years, more complete fossils finally showed it wasn't a nose horn, but a built-in shiv on its thumb.
A thumb spike.
A thumb spike. It could rear up on its hind legs and use that thing defensively. Another case of forcing a feature into a familiar but wrong box.
Okay, so we've covered bad anatomy and bad assumptions. Now let's get into a different kind of error. Bad press. Dinosaurs accused of crimes they didn't commit.
This is where things get really interesting because it's about context. It's about how inconvenient fossil placement can create a false narrative that sticks for decades.
And the poster child for this has to be Oviraptor. The egg thief.
Right. The first fossil was found lying right over a clutch of eggs, and at the time, scientists thought those eggs belonged to a different dinosaur, Protoceratops.
So the story wrote itself.
It did. Here's the thief, died in the act of raiding a nest, so they name it Oviraptor, which literally means egg thief.
But the truth was much more wholesome.
Much more. Later analysis, finding embryos inside similar eggs, proved the eggs were Oviraptor eggs.
So the thief?
Was a mother, protecting her own nest when she died, probably buried suddenly in a sandstorm.
A completely innocent animal slandered for 100 years.
And the name stuck. They never issued a formal apology. And it's a similar story with Coelophysis, a small Triassic predator.
This one was the cannibal, right?
The prime example of dino cannibalism. They found tiny bones inside its rib cage.
But again, the truth was less dramatic.
Meticulous new studies showed the baby bones weren't inside the adult's stomach. They were just underneath it. They had died together in something like a flash flood.
So exonerated?
Exonerated of cannibalism, though still a sad end for the babies. But it just shows you have to question everything, even the context of the find.
So if we pull all this together, there's a really clear pattern here, isn't there?
There is.
Whether it's Cope's rush job, the failure to grasp the scale of Brontosaurus, or the misinterpretation of Oviraptor, it all seems to come from having limited points of comparison.
They were just desperate to fit these bizarre new features into archetypes they already understood. Rhinos, crocs, hippos. They failed to grant prehistoric life the originality it really had.
And the beautiful thing is that the constant need to correct these models, that's the engine of paleontology.
Exactly.
We've seen T-Rex go from a slow, tail-dragging dummy to a smart, agile forager. We've seen Velociraptor go from a scaly lizard to a feathered bird-like predator.
And we've only covered a few big mistakes. This process never, ever stops. As long as we're making new discoveries, the current ideas are always vulnerable. We're still making mistakes today.
So for you, the learner, what's the big takeaway here? The most valuable lesson from all these errors isn't really about the dinosaurs themselves.
No, it's about the process of science.
It's a history of hypothesis, testing, spectacular failure, and then finally, refinement. Every wrong idea narrows the field of possibilities and gets us closer to the truth.
The key step isn't avoiding the mistake. It's being willing to publicly correct it, just like Marsh forced Cope to do.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought. If scientists in the past could look at a bundle of nerves and glycogen and see a literal butt brain, what fundamental assumptions are we making today, even with all our technology, that are going to look completely absurd 50 years from now? Keep questioning the established wisdom.